Hello guys, welcome back. In this video, let us see and learn about one more important service implementation. In real time, there is a lot of requirement to deploy your applications on top of containers. So that's what we're gonna learn at the end of this video. Here in this video, we're gonna see how to deploy our Flask app on top of one of the AWS container related service, that is ECS. So before deploying it, we need to store it, right? Yes. So in order to store, we have this ECR. And if you want to deploy any application on top of containers, then you must need to define a Docker image. In that Docker image, you need to specify what on what programming language you are going to run your app, and so where your app actually is, and that app related dependencies. So those all configurations you need to do on your Docker file. So first you have your website, then you configure your Docker file. In that you specify on top of what server or what language you are running your application, and you also install the dependencies and your app related configurations in this Docker file. Then after, you can use that and you build your image. Then after, we will deploy or we will push that image into this ECR, that is Elastic Container Registry, where the service we use to store our Docker images. Currently, we are storing it in our image in private repository. In real time also, whenever you are creating any Docker image for your client project related application, you need to store your Docker images in a private repository. So for that, you have Amazon ECR is already available for you. So then after, in order to deploy it, we have ECS, that is Elastic Container Service. That service, by using that service, we can able to create containers, and we can able to deploy our whatever the Docker file or Docker images or the data that you store under your ECR repository. Now in this video, I'm gonna show whole end-to-end process. So in this lab, I'll also show you the lab as well. In this, what you're gonna learn is how to deploy an application on containers. Nothing but deploying a Docker related applications on ECS containers. Docker applications on ECS service. And so in this, you will learn ECS related hands-on as well as proof of concept of it as well. As well as this also comes under ECR related proof of concept as well. You might get some knowledge regarding Docker file as well in this lab. So during about a Flask application, I don't want to tell you much more about it, but I'll give you a brief about it. So let's start the lab. Now you can see I've already logged into my AWS management console. Now, in order to configure, or you can say in order to show you the Docker image that I have configured and app related configurations, I first want some IDE related platform. You can see this Cloud9 actually provides me that platform. So that's why I'm opening that platform, that Cloud9 service right now. In this, I actually created one environment for you in order to log into that environment and use that environment. You can see I'm opening this environment. You can even implement this on your own environment, that is like your own IDEs as well. Currently, this option is available for me in cloud. So that's why I'm using with this, that is Cloud9. Now you can see currently there is a no file. Now I want to upload a zip file. So that's why I clicked on file to upload my code. That is my app related code and my Docker image related file. Currently I want to upload it. So that's why I just clicked on file. Here you can see upload local files. You just click on it so that you can drag and drop what are the files that you want to upload. Those will be uploaded here. Currently, I've already created a zip file for my Flask app, and in that app itself, I have provided all the files related to required libraries and HTML, CSS codes, everything. So first I want to download or upload that file and show you that data at first. Now you can see I uploaded that file. You can see that is visible here. That is labcode.zip. I want to unzip this file. From terminal, I want to unzip this file. So I'm opening a new terminal from here by clicking on plus and selecting new terminal. If you see, we are under environment folder. Yeah. Now, if you list here, then you can able to see what are the current file that you uploaded. I want to unzip this file. So that's why I'm writing this unzip command and I'm writing the file name, that is labcode.zip. Now you can see the file got unzipped and in that we have these three folders. So this is the first app related folder and this is the second app related folder. These are the scripts that we need to install in order to run, or you can say whatever the dependencies like Docker and the script in order to run your or upload your file into your repository. So first I want to show you, so first you need to install the Docker, right? Yeah. So for that, this is the file. In this actually I provided all the requirements or you can say packages that I need to install. Commands I provided in this shelf file. Now I'm just opening this batch file. You can see here I'm provided the command. So in order to install Docker and start the service of that Docker, I have written commands here. Now I want to run this in order to install my Docker and start that Docker. For doing that, for running these commands in bash, I want to provide that path. That is a dot. That means it represents current location / where it was under install script folder, right? So that's why I'm providing install scripts folder. Then I need to provide this file name, install docker.sh. Now just clicking on enter, you can see, so those are getting installing. My Docker is getting installed as well as it gets started as well. You can see start docker.service. Now, actually our Docker also gets started. So to run our Docker image, we need these all dependencies like a Docker. We need this Docker as well as we need to start that Docker service. Now we installed and we started that. So now, so first question you that rises in your mind is, this is my actual app. This is my actual app. And this app.py contains my app related Flask application related code. And this might use my home.html. So those all may present in my static files as well as in my templates. You can see home, base as well as 404 error. I've created 4 HTML pages. I'm not going much more deep into these HTML pages or this Flask app creation. If you are not, if you want to learn about a Flask app creation, then first just understood the basic of your Flask app. Then you can move on with this configuration. So currently I want to focus on this app related deployment in my containers. In order to deploy this Flask app, not only Flask, any app it may be. In this scenario, we are seeing about Flask app, so that's why I'm dealing with Flask. Now I want to deploy this Flask app on top of my containers, that is ECS containers. To deploy that, so what is meant by deployment? Nothing but we're running this app, right? Yeah. So for that, if you want to deploy any app on top of containers, you need to create a Docker image. Now you can see this is the Docker file. This is the Docker file that I've already created. In this Docker file, I have provided the configurations in order to deploy, or you can say run my app.py, nothing but my application Python code. So in this, what I've provided, you can see I am using Python 3.8 Slim Buster in order to run my application code. And you can see, so in order to run my application code, I need this application code, right? Yeah. So from current folder, I am installing all and moving that to this app folder. So then what happens? So whatever the files which are present here, so in order to run this Docker file, I must need to came to this first app folder, right? Yeah. So after moving into this first app folder, then only I can able to run this Docker file. So let's say I move to this first app folder, then I run this Docker file. Then what happens? First, it will pick this Python version. Then it will take this sample name as maintainer. Then first, in order to run my app, I need all these files, right? Yes. So first we are copying all those files by this fifth line command. You can see whatever the files which are present in current folder, those all I am copying and moving into this app folder, right? Yeah. Now then all my files which are present here, those all move to my app folder, new folder, that is app. Then what happens? We are making that app folder as a working directory. That is nothing but we are moving into that app folder. Then whatever the requirements do I have here, whatever the requirements do I have, that is this requirements.txt. This I am moving. I'm moving into where? Into my app folder. You can see that app folder that we created previously by using this Docker commands. To that app folder, we are moving the requirements as well. Then we are installing whatever the requirements. So first we moved our app. Before that, we provided the language that we are using to run our app. Then we are copying our app into some folder and we are copying the requirements into the same app folder. Then we first downloading or installing the requirements. Then by this command, we actually running our Docker file. That is nothing but by this command, actually we are running our Flask app. You can see Python 3 m Flask run on this current host, on top of this port only your app is going to run. So this is what this whole Docker file script is. Now we have even understood this Docker file script. So we have our app as well as the Docker file related to our app. That is, in order to run this app, I've created a Docker file. Now I want to deploy this on top of my containers. So in order to deploy in your containers, first you need to move your files into your container service, that is ECR, Elastic Container Registry. Then from container service, that is ECR, you can able to use those registry stored files and you can able to create your containers for your application. So now in order to move in order to create a container in ECR, first we need to move these files into our container registry, right? Yeah. So in order to move these files into our container registry, first we need to create a container registry. So in order to create a container registry, we first need to configure our region, in which region you want to create that registry, and you also need to provide the repository name that you are going to create in your ECR. That is nothing but your registry name in your ECR. So let's move on with getting those default configurations. First, I'm expecting to store my region. So for that, I'm using this command, that is AWS config get region. And I'm storing that value in this region variable. I'm just clicking on enter. You can see in this variable, actually my data is stored regarding region. You can even see that by using a dollar echo command, you can able to print the data present in that region variable. You can see US is to 1 that was stored in this variable. We have another easy way to provide this region manually as well. So you can use this command in order to provide your region as well. I'm just clicking on enter, and even I'm just clicking on echo region. You can see our region is the same, that is visible since we provided that. Now I want to provide some repo name in a variable. I want to store a repository name in a variable. For that, I'm using one more variable, that is a repo name. Just clicking on enter so that this name will be stored in this into this variable. Now I want my account number. In order to get that, you have this command, that is get caller identity. AWS STS get caller identity. Then in that also, let's say I want only my account number. You can further query the result that you get from this get caller identity, and you can get that output in the format that you want. Currently I want text format, so that's why I provided that. And let's say I want to see my account number as well, so that's why I'm using echo command to print that. You can see this is the account number. Now I want the full name of my repository. To get the full name of your repository, you can use this command, that is you need to provide your account number dot docker dot ecr dot in which region you want to create that name you need to provide, and I'm just storing this whole data into this full name variable. Even you can write the echo command to see the data which is stored under this variable. This is the full name of my repository. So if I create my repository by using this my app name, then the repository full name will look like this. So in this way, actually your repository will be created. Now I want to create a repository. So for that you have this AWS ECR create repository function is there. Then you need to provide the repository name as an argument. You can see I'm providing this. Now I'm just clicking on enter so that this repository will be created. Now you can see the required repository got created, right? Yes. So whatever the repository that I want, that I have created. What I want to push my application file into this repository, right? Yeah. So in order to push our application file into that repository, we need authentication. For that, you need to use this to get the login. You can see AWS ECR get login password. By using this, it will get the login password regarding the repository present in this region. Then you are logging with this username and that standard in password, right? Yeah. Now I'm just clicking on enter. You can see congrats, credentials helper to remove this warning. Your password will be stored unencrypted way in this JSON file right now. so that you can able to log into your registry any number of times. Now, since I get the credentials of my ECR repository as well, and now I want to move into this step and I want to build this whole Docker template. Then I want to tag this template with the repository full name. Then I want to push this whole application into my ECR repository. So for that, first I'm changing or moving into this first app folder. Currently I'm in this environment folder, that is this. So I'm moving into this first app, first underscore app. You can see I am currently in first app folder. Now I want to build my app. So in order to build, you can use the command, that is docker build command you can able to use. Then I want to tag it with my repository name. So that's why I'm using a -t and providing my repo name. Then where I want to build. So in the current location I want to build, so that's why I provided this dot. Just clicking on enter, you can see now our repository building or Docker build is working. Now you can see our Docker build got completed successfully. So after building our Docker, what we need to do? We need to tag our repository full name to this. Before tagging, let's first see whatever the Docker images that I have. So that's why I'm providing Docker space images. There you can see whatever the image that we created, that is visible here, right? Yes. Now I want to tag this. I want to tag this repository name with full name. Then I want to push this to my Docker repository. So for that, you need to write the command, that is a docker tag. So what repository name you provided, that I have stored in my repo name. So that's why I provided that. By using what name you want to tag, by using full name, I want to tag, and I'm just clicking on enter. So I think the full name is not identified. Yeah, you can see currently it is tagged. So our repository name is tagged with this full name. Let's see our Docker images. Now you can see this is our Docker image tagged. Now I want to push this. So in order to push, I can use the command, that is a docker push into where you want to push. Into my, so what you want to push? I want to push this tagged image I want to push. So you can see I am providing that by using that name and return docker push command, and I'm just clicking on enter. Now what happens is, into your repository that you created, that is my app repository, your file got pushed, or you can say your docker related application got pushed. You can even verify that directly from AWS management console. You can see I opened the AWS management console. I'm opening the ECR service. In that ECR service, we have already created a repository by using a command, that is a create repository. Under repository, you can see my app repository is there. If you open it, then you can see the latest image that you pushed to it right now. How you can able to access this, sir? We can able to access this repository by using this. By using this URI, you can able to access it. In containers creation, I'm accessing it with this only. While creating the container for this image, for this repository image, I'm using this URI only. Now let's continue with this process of deploying this application. So for this, I'm copying this URI, and before deploying our application on ECR, so let's first ask us a question, that is, in which port actually this is running. If you deploy your app on this server, then in which port this will run based on the configurations that we provided. Based on the configurations that we provided, it will run on port 8443. You can even open your Docker file. There you can see whatever the command that you provided. You can able to observe on top of this port only we are running our app. So since we are running our app on top of this, we need to allow the traffic coming to this port, right? Yeah. So in order to allow the traffic, I am opening a VPC. First, I want to allow the traffic to my VPC coming through that port. Then after, I'll configure the container for this Docker image, or yeah, Docker image that I've provided in my ECR. So for that, I'm opening whatever the available VPCs. Actually, I've already created one container in this VPC. So that's why you can say I'm checking with this VPC ID 03C starting with, and I'm opening the security groups. I'm opening the security groups. If you observe the security groups that are associated VPC IPs, 03C, this is nothing but our VPC. So that's why I'm selecting this, and I'm changing the inbound rules. And here I am editing this. Now I want to allow the traffic only coming through that port. So that's why I'm deleting the available rule and I'm adding one more rule. Here you can see 8443. I provided the port and I provided the source as IPv4. So what are the traffic coming from any source through this port, I am allowing that traffic. So I'm just saving this rule so that what are the traffic coming through that port to this VPC, our to our VPC, that I am allowing, right? Yeah, that rule is added. Now you can open your container service, that is ECS, in order to create a task to run your registry image, this Docker image. In order to run your app, you can open your container service and you can create your own container. You can say I've already created one container here. Now I want to define a task in order to run my image or app present in this repository image. I want to configure a task definition. Here you can say I'm clicking on task definition and I am providing create new task definition. Here I'm providing the details. I'm providing some task definition name. You can see this is my first app related task. So that's why in order to identify this task, I provided the name like this. So for this infrastructure, I currently want to use AWS Fargate. And for that, in order to run this, I want to run on top of Linux. So that's why I selected this. For this demo, I require only 0.5 virtual CPUs. That's enough. And 1 GB is enough memory for me. And coming to roles, I'll define these roles while creating a task in it. Now I'm just want to provide here the image URI. So in which ECR repository your image was. If you open and see, my repository name is my app. So that's what I'm providing here. And here you need to provide your image URI. You can say I'm copying it and I'm pasting the same here. Now I'm just moving it up. And so through what port you want to allow your traffic? That is 8443. Through this port only I want to allow that TCP traffic. So that's why I provided this. And I'm moving on with the default options related to other configurations. Currently, I don't want any logs related to this demo, and I'm just clicking on create so that this task definition will just create now. Now you can see it, the task definition successfully created. So that is this. Even this is active, right? Yeah. Now I want to deploy this, or I want to run this task. So in order to run my application, I need to run this task. So whenever I run this task, whatever the image present in this, that will run. So whenever this image will run, then my application will be deployed or running. Now I'm just clicking on run task, and in the existing cluster itself I'm running, and I'm providing my configure related to compute. That is, I am moving on with that default compute that I previously provided. And deployment configurations, I'm moving on with application type as task. And I'm only running only one task. Coming to networking, I want to run this under my lab VPC. And in both public subnets I want to run, so that's why I'm using both. Related to security group, I'm choosing the default one. This is what we configured previously for our VPC. In order to allow the traffic coming through 8443 port only. Now I'm turning on this public IPv4 address, task related overrides. So for task role, I want to use this ECS execution role, and task execution role, this ECS task execution role I want to use. So that's it. I'm just clicking on create. So whenever you click on create, now it's actually launched. Your task is launched. So you can see it is running. That is, your task is provisioning. Wait till this get provisioned. So whenever this gets provisioned, you will get a public IP. You can see this public IP. In this public IP address, you can able to access your website. Now, if you clearly observe, then your application will be you stored in this repository. Then you are running your app on top of container service in the form of containers, right? By using Elastic Container Service, you are running your app on top of the service in the form of containers, right? Yeah. So now I want to open this public IP address in a new tab, and here I want to provide that IP address with extension as 8443, and just clicking on enter. Now you can see we are getting our first container app. Congrats, this is your first containerized app. So this is what the HTML script that I provided previously in my Flask app. So I don't want to specify much more details about a Flask app related applications created using Flask app. But here in this lab, you have learned how to use that Flask app or to deploy on top of containers using ECS service. So let's make it fast in order to deploy one more configuration with automated way. So for that, I'm opening again my environment. Here you can see I also have this second app. So for this, in order to deploy this app, I'm using, you can see in my bash, I have used multiple commands, right? In order to deploy my first app. Yeah. In order to deploy my first app, first what I will do, I installed all the Docker related files and I started that Docker. Then I've taken region, a repo name, account, and full name, and I've created a repository, and I'll get the login credentials. Then after, you can say I've built my Docker image. Then after, I tagged that image and I pushed that image into my repository. Through that ECR repository, I'm using that repository related URI ID, that is I used the repository related URI ID, that is this, and I defined, I configured a task definition in my ECS, and I deployed my container to run my application, right? Yeah. So now let's automate the process regarding all these commands. So for that, I have written this, that is this push second.sh. Here you can see all the region related, account related, or repo related configurations, and you can see Docker password, password related to logging to our authentication regarding our repository that we have provided here, and we're changing into that environment, and we are building our repository, and we are tagging our repository as well as we are pushing our repository. So we are doing all these steps, right? We're doing all these steps by writing this all commands in a single file. So I want to show you how to run this. So in order to run this, you just need to provide, since that's a bash related script, you just need to provide the path. So where actually am I? I'm in my first app, so that's why I'm moving on one bit. Now I'm in this environments folder. So from this, I want to move to where? To this install scripts, install underscore scripts. Then in this, where my bash script is, in this push second app.sh, right? So that's why I'm writing push second app.sh. So before running this, I want to show you what are the repositories that I have. You can see I only have this repository. When I reloading this, you can see only one repository is visible here. So whenever I run this, then all the commands which are present in it will run, and it will create you a repository, and it will build you a Docker image, and it will push you that image to this repository. Now I'm just clicking on enter. You can see all the commands present in this will work right now. So currently they are working. So this actually creates your repository and build your Docker image and push your Docker image as well. So everything will be happened in this. Now you can able to open your ECR. Here I'm reloading this. You can see your second app is also visible here, right? Yes. Now I want to deploy this. So to deploy it, again the same thing, that is a task configuration in your ECS. For that, I'm moving on with the task definitions. I'm clicking on create new task definition, and I'm clicking on create new task. Here I'm providing my task name. So since this is a second app, I'm providing the name like second app. You can provide any name based on your requirement in real time. And I'm moving on with this configuration forget related to launch type, and operating system. I'm using Linux, and CPUs, and I require 0.5 virtual CPUs is enough for this demo, and 1 GB memory is enough for this demo. Coming to task role, I'm using this ECS task role. Yeah, the same task role I'm using for execution as well. You need to provide your repository name. So that I'm moving back and copying this repository name and providing that repository name here. Here you need to provide your repository related URI. So I provided the repository related URI where my app is present. Yeah. So through what port you want to allow the traffic? 8443. For this also the same thing. You can even check it with the configurations which are present in your second app. This is the Docker file. You can see through the same port only I am allowing. So I'm just providing the same here. And yeah, that's it. I'm moving on with the default configuration. I don't want logs right now also. Now I'm just clicking on create so that this task definition will create right now. Then after, again the same thing, you can able to deploy by just clicking on deploy and run task. you can able to deploy your image on top of this existing cluster. You can create your own clusters as well in real time, and you can able to use those as well. And I'm moving on with these compute configurations and deployment configurations. Also, I'm moving on with the default. Whereas networking, I want to provide the lab VPC. In that, I'm using both subnets and the default security group. This default security group, I allowed only 8443 traffic. I'm choosing to create this public IPv4 address. And if you open this task overriding, already your task role is this and task execution role is this. Even you don't need to select these task roles as well. So for this demo, I just want to, yeah, since I selected, I'm just moving on and just clicking on create, so that this task also will create running right now. You can see this task is just no provisioning. I'm just opening it. So let's wait till this gets provisioned. So whenever it gets provisioned, then you can similarly open this public IPv4 address through that 8443 port, and you can able to check your app as well. So currently it is launching my container with the app configurations that I provided in my image. Now you can see it is running. So I'm just copying this public IPv4 address and I'm opening a new tab. Here I am providing that address and I'm providing the port as 8443. Just clicking on enter. Now you can able to observe that your second app also visible here, right? Yes. So in this way, actually in real time, you can able to use your ECS service to deploy your applications in the form of containers. I hope you understood this video and you got knowledge regarding how to use ECR and ECS in order to deploy your applications. Either it may be Flask or some other it may be by using Docker files. And you have also understood the Docker file, how it will look like, and what are the commands it has, and how to deploy your, how to build your Docker image and push that image to your container registry and use that registry image, registry related URI to deploy in your ECS. That is by using that registry related URI, how to deploy your applications on top of containers in your ECS. So those are all things you have seen in this video. I hope you understood this video and hands-on regarding how to use your ECS to deploy your containers. I hope this video is useful. If you feel this video useful, then please like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to get the latest updates. Thanks for watching again. See you back in the next video with another interesting topic. Until then, bye bye, guys.